there, he happened to hear about a concert with some famous old rock groups like Grateful Dead and Moby Grape and Jefferson Airplane or Starship, whatever they were called back then, Airplane, Cheap Trick, and a bunch of other, famous bands at the time. And he noticed a poster there with a painting of an elderly Indian Swami sitting kind of looking down a little bit with his hand on his shaved head, and this kind of a psychedelic poster with all the different rock groups that were going to be there. And so that was a big event. That was, if any of you read the biography of Mukunda Maharaj, and also a few other devotees mentioned that. Guru Das also mentioned that. It was a big event in San Francisco, and I believe Guru Das, and especially Mukunda Maharaj, had some connections with some of these groups, and were able to arrange a huge rock concert at the Avalon Ballroom, really famous concert venue there in the city. And so Srila Prabhupada was invited there. And so my brother walked into the rock concert there to the chanting of Srila Prabhupada on the stage, chanting Hare Krishna. And so that was his first contact with Srila Prabhupada and then the devotees. And he started to go to the temple a little bit and didn't join there, but then joined the Merchant Marines for a little while, and went up to Seattle, hung out at the temple a little bit. And then my family was living in Detroit, Michigan at the time, and I was a high school student. And my brother decided that he would live at home, shave his head, wear a dhoti, kurta tilak, full Vaishnava attire, and go to Mangal Arati and spend all day doing service at the Detroit temple at that time. And that became a very kind of an odd thing for our neighborhood. We lived just in a suburb next to Detroit, kind of an affluent neighborhood. And I remember the expression on people's face in the neighborhood who would see my brother out mowing the lawn or out, total devotee attire, and much to the consternation of my very conservative father, although my mother was very tolerant. So at that time, my brother started preaching to me, and I was just, like any other regular, bewildered high school student going to high school, somewhat interested in spirituality. I was studying Zen Buddhism and things, and so my brother used to then take me to the temple. Often we'd go to Mangal Arati, and of course to the Sunday feast. That was my first contact with devotees. And then I ended up, and of course this all isn't directly, I have a few direct pastimes with Prabhupada. I always thought it's kind of really interesting how devotees come to Krishna consciousness, so many amazing stories. And I decided I would go to, my parents really wanted me to go to college, so I agreed I'd go for a first year. I ended up going just for one semester to a very small liberal arts school up in New Hampshire. And the only subject I was really interested in was theater, because there was some creativity I could do in that. I really had no interest in any other subjects. And at the end of one semester, my theater teacher, who I really liked, he was a really good teacher, he said, I hope you'll come back next semester because I think you have some talent, and other devotees have seniority, but next semester we'll be able to give you better roles like that. And I told him, I said, Mr. Benner, I love the theater. It's a great place for self-expression. I think you're a great theater teacher. But I have to be completely honest. I'm playing the parts of so many different people, and I have no idea who I am. And at that point, after one semester, I left with a friend of mine. We hitchhiked, which was very popular in those early days, all the way out to California. And in California, we lived on a hippie commune for a few months, which is actually a very famous commune because there's a number of devotees that came even before my time from that commune. it turns out Shyamasundar Prabhu, one of the first devotees in the movement, was ended up being very good friends with my brother-in-law. That's a whole other story. They actually went to jail together, but I won't tell that story. And then, I spent a few months up there on the farm, and then was kind of wandering around in the city of San Francisco, and all of a sudden happened to walk right in front of the Hare Krishna temple. And there was a devotee, I exactly remember the scene. He was in the van, probably going out to pick up some boga or something, with his hooded sweatshirt, and the devotee's name was Bhumna. And immediately on seeing him, all the memories of my first contact with devotees, and of course my brother, flooded into my mind. And this time my brother was a full-time devotee living in the temple. He'd actually was moved to India, was one of the first devotees in Bombay. And so then I started coming every day for about a month. And I didn't join right away. I came with a friend of mine. We'd hitchhiked out from school. And every day we'd come and wouldn't even chant on japa ourselves. We'd just sit in the lobby. And when the devotees were chanting japa, we'd sit, cross-legged, close our eyes, and just meditate on the sound of the devotees chanting japa, which in itself was a really powerful experience. And I kept asking questions every day, and came back like that for like a whole month. We'd go to some of the temple programs like that. And at the end of the month, I remember that I searched my mind and there were no other questions. And I realized that if I was actually honest person, that I'd surrender is really the only thing left to do. So I surrendered at the temple there and started engaging in menial service. My Sankirtan leader was Jayananda Prabhu. And so for the first 6 months, the Bhakta program was about 8-9 hours a day on Harinam Sankirtan down in downtown San Francisco, which is a little bit heavy, especially in those days. But, weathered through it, and, we distribute incense and pass out. We only had magazines in at least the first 6 months to distribute. And Jayananda was an amazing devotee, and he was so liberal. Every day we go out, we had a huge barrel full of Simply Wonderfuls that we bring out and distribute. And, devotees, especially when you just join like that, are really attached to prasadam. So Jayananda had this policy that from the temple out to Sankirtan, devotees could eat as many Simply Wonderfuls as they wanted. And so we would somewhat deplete the supply on the way out there. So anyway, I was in San Francisco, and then I got news that Prabhupada was coming, and I'd only been there about 6 months. And so Prabhupada came for Rath Yatra, and it was having Prabhupada there for Rath Yatra was this most amazing experience. Just before that, there was a morning walk that somehow or other I got to go on. I mean, in the early days, even by 72, the infrastructure of management in ISKCON was already kind of there, and there were, many GBCs and sannyasis. I mean, not as many comparatively as later or now, but it was, unless you had special permission, you couldn't not any brahmachari or someone could just go on a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada. Somehow or other I was able to go. And I remember that, by this time I was convinced of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and I was getting a taste by doing menial service and following the program. But I wanted some direct confirmation from Srila Prabhupada himself that he was my eternal spiritual master. And I guess, I wanted some kind of a mystical experience, which, I really didn't deserve or shouldn't really expect at my stage, neophyte stage of Krishna consciousness. But Srila Prabhupada is so kind. And so, Krishna is omniscient, but he knows so many things. It says the spiritual master is Trikalagya. He knows past, present, and future. Certainly he knew what I was thinking. So on the walk, the whole time I was trying to, Prabhupada was talking about different things, making different points, and he'd stop at certain points in the walk, plant his cane, and preach to the devotees. And I kept making a point to try to catch Prabhupada and have him look into his eyes and have him look into my eyes. And it wouldn't happen practically the whole walk. And so I think I just kind of gave up on the idea and probably got a little embarrassed that I was even, thinking like that or something. But somehow or other, towards the end of the walk, and it was probably when I least expected it, Prabhupada stopped, planted his cane in the ground, looked directly in my face, and it was the most amazing mystical experience where when I caught his gaze, within the space of a few seconds, it felt like Prabhupada had taken it's probably just total speculation. I can't base it on Shastra or anything. But it was just an experience. And it was as if within those brief few moments, he took my soul and we went to the beginning of time and then all the way to the end of time, at least my time in the material world. And I had this, the feeling of absolute faith. That that Srila Prabhupada knew everything about me. He knew my past. He knew my whole future, and so that was a really wonderful experience. And then Rath Yatra was so amazing. By that time, we had just gotten some books. We got Krishna book came out in trilogy. We had Lord Chaitanya in 5 features. Part of the Adi Leela, which was just a small paperback at the time. And I remember, just having Prabhupada present there in Rath Yatra was so amazing. And I remember the experience. Just like it says that in the spiritual world, every walk is a dance. And, every word is a song. And so when I was there distributing books, it was, I got this sense that, just having Prabhupada there, that he was somehow mystically doing everything. And I was like walking up to people. I'd take a book out and it was all like a dance. And I don't even remember asking people for anything in return. It was just like I gave them the book. And as soon as I would even open my mouth to give a donation, they already had their hand out with money and were giving me the money. And I took the money, and with my next hand I was passing out the book. It was just this amazing, and I could swear I could actually see like waves of ecstasy in the air. So that was amazing, having Srila Prabhupada there. And then I didn't have much close personal individual association from Prabhupada then. And I want to make the point that, in those early days, most of us didn't really feel it was absolutely necessary to be always in the physical presence of Srila Prabhupada. At least I didn't, and when I did have that, I really felt like I was kind of bothering Srila Prabhupada anyway. And so I'd sit kind of like a fly on the wall and just observe his every movement and what he was saying, and and how he was dealing with the different people he would meet. And so, I was just satisfied. My service, became book distribution. And then I was able to, by Krishna's mercy, go to Japan and be with the Guru Kripa, who's here now, Prabhu's party. He was Swami at that time, who were collecting donations to build temples in India. Srila Prabhupada wanted these, a few really nice showcase temples in the 3 most important places. First of all, he wanted in the most important holy places like Vrindavan and Mayapur, and then also Bombay. And he really had no idea how the funding was going to come. So Srila Prabhupada told Guru Kripa Prabhu told Prabhupada, I will get the money for you. And somehow or other he figured out people in Japan. Actually, it was kind of instigated by Gopal Prabhu, who's also here. He said, people in Japan are very charitable, thought it might be good for collections. So we went to Japan, and, we had a party of between 10 to about 18 devotees every day. And for day in, day out, 7 days a week, worked with no Sunday feast, no time off, somewhere between usually about 8 to 12 hours a day. We were collecting on the street, and we were able to collect, by Krishna's grace, millions of dollars and give it to the temple. But the highlight of that service was, because of the intense service, we got to come to Mayapur and Vrindavan for like a couple months when Srila Prabhupada was here. And so most of that time I spent actually in Mayapur, and we were able to come to Guru Puja every day and sit and hear his Srimad Bhagavatam class. And so that was really amazing. And then in 1976, Jayapataka Swami had some problem with the temple commander there. I don't recall who exactly it was or what the difficulty was, but he said he needed a man for like a month or two before the festival and during the festival. So Guru Kripa Prabhu, he recommended me for the service. And so I became the temple commander of Mayapur. And the most amazing part of that service is I had the ability to walk into Srila Prabhupada's room whenever I wanted. And I took advantage of that as much as I could. But again, so many people were coming, especially in 76, to see Srila Prabhupada. I would always just come to his room and just sit down, against the wall and just, feel incredibly fortunate just to be in his association. I had a few direct interchanges with the Prabhupada. There was one time, and this is kind of, every little pastime with Srila Prabhupada is like so instructive. And especially, those devotees who had just a little bit of, even just a little bit of personal association, those few little exchanges are branded into, your consciousness. So there was one time when Prabhupada was, I was really excited to be able to go on the morning walk with Prabhupada, but I was all the way over by the front gate, and the devotees were starting. Jayapataka Maharaj, Bhavana Maharaj, other sannyasis and GVCs were congregating with Srila Prabhupada on Jayapataka Maharaj's roof, where he stayed up there in the Lotus building. And so I ran as fast as I could. I climbed up the stairs, I got up, offered my obeisance to Srila Prabhupada, and as soon as I was feeling so happy, I'm there on the walk with Srila Prabhupada, and then all of a sudden, and at this point, the sun was just starting to rise. It hadn't even risen yet. It was the first rays of sunlight. It was still a little bit dark. As soon as I got up there, Prabhupada pointed his cane all the way to the other side of the property where I just come from. There was one little light bulb on. Srila Prabhupada says, "Why is that on?" I was like, "Jai Srila Prabhupada." Offered my obeisances, ran all the way out, turned it off. And then on the walk, Srila Prabhupada would often, sometimes he'd come and there'd just be a faucet dripping water, just even drip, drip, drip. Prabhupada would stop what he was saying, point to the faucet and say, "Why is that dripping?" And that in of itself is so instructive because, Prabhupada was a pure devotee and he saw Krishna everywhere and with everything. And so he was so conscious of every little aspect of Krishna's energy not being misused. And so that's always a good thing to keep in mind. Srila Prabhupada, if you ever get the chance to look at his early diary on the Jaladuta and also his early diary that he was keeping the accounts that he was keeping in the early Brooklyn temple, he was so precise and so conscious, everything he did, so conscious not to waste anything in Krishna's service. There was another time when, two more stories I'll tell, and then I'll give up the mic here. So I was temple commander there, and then all the devotees who came, we were struggling to finish the perimeter rooms on the perimeter of the property at that time. They were just being built, and we were hoping to get them finished in time for all the devotees coming. So we were trying to engage every devotee who came early to the festival to try to help. So there was this one devotee that was really bothering me. He'd come early, really strong African-American devotee. He wouldn't do any active service. He'd just go out in the banana patch all day and just chant Hare Krishna. And it really irked me to the point where I went up to Srila Prabhupada's room and knocked on the door. Srila Prabhupada was chanting japa, and like he often would, he had his knee up and his elbow on his knee, chanting like that. Had his hand, his regal head turned to the side like this, chanting Hare Krishna Hare. And I came in over here and knocked on the door. Srila Prabhupada said, yes, didn't even look over. I offered my obeisances, and I came up and she said, Srila Prabhupada, I'm sorry to bother you, but I have a problem. I'm wondering if you could help me with it. He said, yes. I said, Srila Prabhupada, we're trying to finish the rooms on the perimeter wall before the devotees come. We're behind schedule. We need every devotee who's coming early, really possible, to help us. And there's one really able-bodied devotee from America, and he won't do any service. He'll just go all day long, sit in the banana patch, and chant Hare Krishna. And so then I stopped speaking, and Prabhupada kept chanting a little bit, kind of, thinking what I was saying, and then finally stopped chanting. And he looked at me and he said, so, you think chanting Hare Krishna is not service? Says that is the highest service. And his eyes rolled like that. And I was like, Jai Srila Prabhupada, offered my obeisances. That was very instructive. And then there was another time when, Prabhupada would come down and he would give Srimad Bhagavatam class and for his Guru Puja, and all the devotees would come down especially for his Guru Puja and his class. And the GBC meetings were going on at this time. And I was observing that practically none of the sannyasis, none of the GBCs were coming to the evening program, and they were not coming to Mangal Arti. We had a few stray sannyasis that were coming, and that was it. They were staying up late at night with the GBC meetings. So I came into Srila Prabhupada's room, offered my obeisances, and I said, Srila Prabhupada, I just wanted you to know that there's none of the leaders of the movement practically are coming to the evening program or Mangal Arti. It may look like they're here because when you come down for Bhagavatam, for your Guru Puja, they're all here, they all come. But few sannyasis for Mangal Arti, nobody's coming for Sundar Arti. Srila Prabhupada said, thank you very much, sent me out. He called all the GBC in. He said, from now on, your meeting will end whenever it was like a half an hour before Sundar Arti. And that was it. Srila Prabhupada laid down the law. And I remember the effect of that was so inspiring. I first remember the first morning when all the GBC, all the sannyasis were there. It's just like Srila Prabhupada speaks about in the Bhagavad Gita how faith is created in the association of the devotees. Just seeing all the leaders of our big international movement there, at the program, gave me such a sense of faith and solidarity. It was really an overwhelming feeling. So that was also a really instructive experience. So now I'll turn the mic over to whoever's next. Katha. I'm sorry? Yeah, they were both in 76. My brother's name is Jaga Prush. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.